Hi everybody, I'm Michael. This is a 5-minute review for Nancy Drew Secrets Can Kill. It's the first Nancy Drew game, and you can kind of tell they weren't sure what they were doing because it's got a lot of stuff which is not in any of the other Nancy Drew games. So we've got cartoon characters instead of computer characters. I thought the animation was fine. I actually like the characters in this game and the way they look. But that is something that's totally different. The puzzles are rather violent for this series. Like the final puzzle to stop the culprit, you have to use a gun on the culprit. And to get inside the teacher's lounge, Nancy needs to use a glass cutter to break open the window and get inside the building. In the teacher's lounge! How did nobody notice that? And it's weird because the school is allegedly filled with all sorts of cops and all sorts of people, but really there's only 3 characters that we can meet. That's something which is strange too. I like the characters, but they never interact with each other. The conversations get cut off halfway through. So you'll be talking to somebody and they'll say, I gotta go now, later, even though there are 3 conversation options that you haven't picked yet. And then you just talk to them again and they act like nothing just happened. It's strange. The conversations are generally not conversations. It's mostly Nancy just asking questions of people. It doesn't feel like a real natural conversation. So the premise is that Jake Rogers has been murdered in the high school. Nancy needs to figure out who did it. There's a lot of brain teasers in this game. That's like 90% of the gameplay is solving brain teasers and word puzzles, which are just all over the walls. And that's something they don't do in other Nancy Drew games. For good reason. Like, the brain teasers are fun to solve the first time around, but not the second time around. If you already know the brain teasers, then there's no reason to do them again. It really destroys the game's replay value. Also, if you get stuck on a particular brain teaser, no hints whatsoever. If you miss a particular one, well, you're gonna be stuck. I think the one most people get stuck on is the brain teaser, which is Jake's locker combo, is part of his name, which means his locker combo is 5253, because those are those letters and numbers on a phone. There's also a hint about that when you call Nancy's friends, but those phone calls are useless. Nancy's friends do not help at all. Another weird thing about this game is we have locations that just are underutilized. So the end of the game thing happens at a drug depot, a drug pharmacy. That's the only time it's used. It's kind of a useless location. Something else that makes this game different from the others, it's got 2 CDs, so you're constantly switching through CDs. We've got Aunt Eloise's house, which is a nice location, but it's definitely an underutilized location. You've got a slider puzzle there and a puzzle to get a key, and I think that's it. Oh, you also use it to watch a videotape. So what Nancy needs to do is basically she goes through the school and she finds evidence relating to the 3 characters. Hulk Sanchez, he's a football star who's secretly taking drugs to cover up the fact that he was hurt. Hulk is an okay character. Connie, she's secretly a judo champion, which is awesome. I love that. And Hel Tanaka is a Japanese exchange student. He plagiarized an essay because he was in danger of failing. So it turns out that all of these students were being blackmailed. And once Nancy gets the evidence about them, she gets a letter from the culprit luring her into a trap in the boiler room, a very easily escaped trap, and there conveniently happens to be that blackmail tape right there. So Nancy sees the blackmail tape, learns about the blackmail, and turns out Daryl Gray, he's Nancy's police contact. He works at this cool what is it called? Diner named Maxine's, which is a really cool location. I really like it, and I think Daryl's an interesting character. He's kind of fun, and he's kind of flirty. I do think he's good. And Daryl just says, oh, hey, Nancy, Mitch Dillon is the culprit. Who's Mitch Dillon? Has he ever been mentioned before? No, he hasn't. Culprit is a random guy who was never mentioned before, but he's the person that Daryl was selling drugs for. So Daryl knew who the culprit was all along. He could have said something, but he didn't. There's also a puzzle in Maxine's where you have to change, where the place will explode unless you put a soup ladle in the right spot to replace a pair of bolt cutters, which is another weird puzzle. Running up on my 5-minute time limit here. What do I think of the game? It's an okay game. I actually kind of like replaying it, but it's got a lot of weird stuff, and it doesn't really fit in with the rest of the Nancy Drew games. I can overlook that because it's the first game. It's their first attempt. They're still trying to figure out what they're doing. How do you actually make a video game out of a book like that? So it's also very short, too. So I'd say it's an okay game. I'd give it like a 6 out of 10. That's what my rating is.